What if I told you the future of NATO, and maybe even the global balance of power, now hangs on one man's ultimatum? Donald Trump has just thrown down a demand so bold, so controversial, that it could fracture alliances, cripple economies, and even push Russia and China into an even stronger partnership. The stakes are enormous, and the world is now holding its breath. For years, NATO has tried to punish Russia for its war in Ukraine. Sanctions were imposed, assets were frozen, and trade was restricted. But beneath the surface, many NATO countries continued to buy Russian oil and gas. It was a dangerous double life, condemning Moscow with one hand while quietly relying on its energy with the other. Some nations, like Hungary, Slovakia, and Turkey, have been particularly dependent. Others tried to reduce their reliance, but pipelines and infrastructure kept the flow going. Trump has had enough. His ultimatum is simple but explosive. NATO must stop buying Russian oil immediately. No exceptions, no delays, and that's just the beginning. He is demanding that every NATO country stand shoulder to shoulder with the United States and impose united sanctions against Moscow. And then comes the shockwave. He wants NATO nations to hit China with tariffs ranging from 50% to 100% as punishment for purchasing Russian oil. The message is crystal clear. Trump will not impose any new sanctions on Russia unless NATO agrees to this package deal. It's all or nothing. And that means the entire global strategy against Russia now hangs on whether NATO will bend to Trump's terms. But this raises serious questions. Can NATO even do this? Some countries simply cannot afford to cut themselves off from Russian oil overnight. For them, it's not just about politics. It's about keeping the lights on, fueling their industries, and heating their homes. Others fear the backlash from China. If tariffs of this magnitude are imposed, China could retaliate in devastating ways, slamming European exports, choking supply chains, and sparking a trade war that could destabilize the global economy. This isn't just about punishing Russia anymore. This is about testing the very survival of NATO as a unified alliance. Imagine the ripple effects. Energy prices in Europe skyrocket as nations scramble to find alternatives. Ordinary families pay more for gas, food, and electricity. China strikes back with heavy tariffs of its own, targeting European cars, American tech, and global shipping routes. Russia, cornered by sanctions, leans even harder on its partnership with Beijing, creating a new East versus West divide not seen since the Cold War. Trump's ultimatum forces everyone to make a choice. Either NATO takes the risk and stands united, or it fractures under the pressure. And if it fractures, the consequences could be disastrous. Russia emboldened, China empowered, and America signaling it may step back from Europe's defense. Behind closed doors, leaders in Brussels, Berlin, Paris, and London are scrambling. Do they comply with Trump's demand, risking economic chaos? Or do they refuse, risking NATO's unity and America's support? For countries caught in the middle, this is an impossible dilemma. Some analysts believe Trump is playing a dangerous game of chicken, forcing allies to the edge in hopes they'll choose unity at the last second. Others argue this is a calculated move to shift the burden away from the US and onto Europe, making them carry the weight of sanctions they've long depended on Washington to enforce. But one thing is undeniable. This is not just another policy dispute. This is a defining moment. The choices made in the next few weeks could redraw alliances, reshape the global economy, and even set the stage for future conflicts. The question now is this: is Trump forcing NATO into a moment of strength, or setting the stage for its collapse? Is this bold leadership, or reckless brinkmanship? The world is watching closely, because if NATO breaks under the strain, if Europe falters, if China retaliates, and if Russia survives stronger than before, then history may look back at this ultimatum not as a turning point toward peace, but as the spark that lit a much bigger fire. What do you think? Should NATO bow to Trump's demands, or should it hold its ground, even at the risk of losing America's backing? The debate is just beginning, and the consequences will be felt for decades to come. If the story gripped you, hit like and subscribe for more real-life mysteries and revealing true stories.